Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Dhammapada Stories, Part 2, Book 5, Story 15, Lovable, Novice, Tissa. The incident with which this story begins occurred at Rajaga. Here, we are told, lived the Brahman Mahasena, a friend of the Brahman Vanganta, who was the father of Sariputta. One day, as the elder Sariputta went his rounds for alms, he took pity on Mahasena and went to the door of his house. Now Mahasena was poor and in need, thought to himself, my son must have come to the door of my house for alms. But I am a poor man. Doubtless he does not know this. But I have no alms at all to give him. Therefore, not daring to meet him face to face, he went and hid himself. On another day, the elder came again, and the Brahman hid himself as before. Said he to himself, as soon as ever I get anything, I will give him something. But it was some time before this happened. One day, at a certain Brahman recitation, he received a bowl of rice porridge and a small piece of cloth, which he took home with him. Remembering the elder, he said to himself, this alms I ought to give to the elder. At that moment, the elder, who had been engaged in ecstatic meditation, rose from jhana and seeing the Brahman said to himself, the Brahman has received alms and desires me to come to him. Therefore I must go to him. So putting on his mantle and taking his bowl, he went to the door of the Brahman's house and showed himself standing there. When the Brahman saw the elder, his heart was content. He approached him, paid obeisance to him, and gave him a friendly welcome. Then, having provided him with a seat within his house, he took his own bowl of rice porridge and placed the porridge in the elder's bowl. The elder accepted half of the porridge and then covered his bowl. But the Brahman said to him, Reverend sir, here is but a single portion of rice porridge. Grant me happiness in the next life. Not in this. I desire to give you all without reserve. So saying, he poured all of the porridge into the elder's bowl. The elder ate the porridge then and there. When he had finished his meal, the Brahman gave him the cloth, bowing and saying, Reverend sir, may I also obtain the same truth you have seen. So be it, Brahman, replied the elder. returning thanks to him. Then, rising from his seat, he set out on his journey, and in due course arrived at Jetavana. There is a saying, alms given in time of poverty rejoices the heart above measure. And so it was with the Brahman. After he had made this offering, his mind was at peace, and his heart was filled with joy. And he conceived warm of for the elder in the womb of the wife of a supporter of the elder, living at Savatthi. As soon as the mother knew that a child was conceived in her womb, she told her husband, and he sought to eat that. She received the treatment necessary for the protection of the embryo, avoiding foods that were excessively hot or cold or sour, and folding the child in her womb happily. The longing of pregnancy arose within her. Oh, she said, that I might invite the 500 monks led by the elder Sariputta to my house, provide seats for them, and offer them porridge of milk and rice unceasingly. Oh, that I myself might put on yellow robes, take my golden vessel, sit in the outer circle of the seats, and partake of the porridge left uneaten by so many monks. We are told that this longing of hers to put on yellow robes was a sign that her unborn child should one day become a monk under the dispensation of the Buddha. This is a pious longing which our daughter has expressed, said the kinsfolk, and offered a porridge of milk and rice unceasingly to the 500 monks led by the elder Sariputta. She herself put on yellow robes, both under and upper garments, took her golden vessel, sat down in the outer circle of the seats, and partook of the porridge left by the monks. Whereupon her longing subsided. On the expiration of 10 lunar months, she gave birth to a son. From time to time, both before her delivery and after, she gave festivals at which she provided the 500 monks led by Sariputta with rice porridge of honey, milk and rice. This, it is said, was because the boy in his former existence as a Brahmin gave rice porridge. Now, at the festival held on the day of the child's birth, they bathed the child very early in the morning, dressed him in beautiful garments, and laid him on a bed of royal splendor in a blanket worth 100,000 pieces of money. Even as he lay there, he looked at the elder and said, "This is my former teacher, through whom I have attained this splendor. I ought to make an offering to him. So when they carried him, that he might receive the moral precepts, he wrapped that blanket about his little finger and lifted it up with him. His kinsfolk cried out, "His finger has caught in the blanket," and sought to disengage it, whereupon he burst into tears. Then said they, "Leave the child alone, do not make him cry," and carried him along, blanket and all. When it was time for him to make his bow to the elder, he removed his finger from the blanket and cast the blanket at the elder's feet. His kinsfolk, instead of saying, "The young boy did this without knowing what he was doing," said to the elder, "Reverend sir, pray accept the offering the boy has presented to you. Confer the moral precepts on your servant, who has honored you with a blanket worth 100,000 pieces of money. What is the name of this boy?" "Reverend sir, he is to be named after you. Tissa shall be his name." Tissa, as we know, was the name of the elder in his younger days. As a layman, his mother thought to herself, "I shall not interfere with the desire of my son." Accordingly, she presented the 500 monks led by Sariputta with rice porridge made of honey, milk and rice, both at the festival of the naming of the child and at the succeeding festivals of the partaking of food, the piercing of the ears, the reception of the cloth, and the conferring of tonsure. As the boy grew up and reached the age of 7 years, he said to his mother, "Mother, I desire to become a monk under the elder." "Very well, my dear son. Long ago I decided not to interfere with the inclination of my son. Become a monk, my son." So she invited the elder to the house. When he arrived, she presented him with alms and said, "Reverend sir, your servant says that he wishes to become a monk. I will come to the monastery this evening and bring him with me." Having dismissed the elder, she waited until evening, and then, taking her son with her and bearing rich gifts and offerings, she went to the monastery and committed him into the elder's hands. The elder talked with him as follows: "Tissa, the life of a monk is a hard life. When he would like what is warm, he gets what is cold. And when he would like what is cold, he gets what is warm. Those who become monks live a wearisome life, and you are delicate." "Reverend sir, I shall be able to do all that you enjoin upon me." "Very well," said the elder. So he taught him the formula of meditation on the first 5 of the constituent parts of the body, by way of fixing in his mind the thought of the impurity of the body, and then made him a monk. The entire formula involves the recitation of all of the 32 constituent parts of the body. But those who are unable to recite all may recite the first 5. The formula in all is that invariably employed by all the Buddhas, but there is no limit to the number of monks and nuns and lay disciples, both male and female, who have attained arahatship by meditating upon the head and other parts singly. Inexperienced monks frequently make it impossible for their candidates to attain arahatship. For this reason, the elder taught the boy only a part of the formula before receiving him into the order, and then established him in the 10 moral precepts. In honor of his son's admission to the order, his mother and father remained at the monastery for 7 days and presented the assembly presided over by the Buddha with not but rich porridge made of honey, milk and rice. The monks murmured thereat, saying, "We cannot always eat rice porridge made of honey, milk and rice." On the evening of the 7th day, the boy's mother and father went home, and on the 8th day, the novice accompanied the monks to the city for alms. The residents of Savatthi said to each other, "They say that the novice will come to the city today for alms. We will therefore do him honor." So with 500 cloths, they made cushions for alms bowls, and taking 500 bowls with portions of alms, they met the novice on the road and presented them to him. On the following day, they went to the monastery park and repeated the offering. Thus in 2 days, the novice received 1,000 bowls of alms and 1,000 cloths, all of which he presented to the assembly of monks. This was the result of his presentation of the small piece of cloth to the elder in his former existence as a Brahman. So the monks gave him the name Tissa, the alms giver, Pindapattadayaka Tissa. Again, one day, when it was cold, the novice, as he went the rounds of the monastery, noticed monks warming themselves here and there, both in rooms where fire was kept and in other places. Said he, "Reverend sirs, why do you sit warming yourselves?" Novice, "We are cold." Reverend sirs, "When it is cold, one should wrap himself up in a blanket that will keep off the cold." Novice, "You have acquired great merit and may be able to get a blanket, but where can we get any?" "Well then, reverend sirs," said the novice, "let those who need blankets come with me and cast proclamation to be made to that effect throughout the monastery. Said the monks, "Let us go with the novice and procure blankets." So all, because of a novice 7 years old, monks to the number of 1,000 went forth. Not for a moment did he think, "Where can I get blankets for so many monks?" But just took them with him and started out for the city. Such is the wonderful power of alms generously bestowed. Going from house to house without the city, he received 500 blankets. And when he entered the city, men brought him blankets from all quarters. Now as a certain shopkeeper sat in his shop with 500 blankets spread out before him, a certain man passed by the door and seeing him said to him, "Sir, there is a certain novice coming this way collecting blankets. You had better hide yours." Is he taking them as gifts or otherwise? He receives them as gifts. That being the case, if I wish to, I will give him blankets. If not, I will not. Go on your way. And with these words he dismissed him. Thus do doting niggards begrudge people the gifts that others give them, even as did Kala on beholding the incomparable gift of the king of Kosala, and therefore are they reborn in hell. The shopkeeper thought to himself, "This man who came along in accordance with his nature said to me, 'You had better hide your blankets.' And I replied to him, 'In case the novice is receiving them as gifts, I will give him what is my own if I wish. If not, I will not.' Now a man feels ashamed not to give what is in plain sight, but cannot be blamed for hiding what is his own. And since among these 500 blankets there are 2 each of which is worth 100,000 pieces of money, it will be entirely proper for me to hide them." So he folded the 2 blankets border to border and hid them by inserting them in the pile. Just then the novice, accompanied by the 1,000 monks, came to that very place. When the shopkeeper saw the novice, he was filled with love for the boy. In fact, his whole body was suffused with love. He thought to himself, "On seeing a boy like this, I should be willing to give my heart's flesh, let alone blankets." Straightway he removed those 2 blankets from the pile, placed them at the novice's feet, paid obeisance to him and said, "Reverend sir, may I have a share in the truth you have seen?" "So be it," said the novice, returning thanks to him. So the novice, who had received 500 blankets without the city, received another 500 within the city. Thus, on one day alone, he received a total of 1,000 blankets, all of which he gave to the congregation of monks. Therefore, the monks gave him the name Tissa, the blanket giver. Kambala Dayak Tissa. Thus, his gift of a blanket to the elder on the day he was given his name, when he was 7 years old, resulted in his receiving 1,000 blankets. In no dispensation other than that of the Buddha is the gift of a little productive of so much fruit, and a large gift productive of more abundant fruit. Therefore, said the Exalted One, monks, this congregation of monks is of such sort that a little gift bestowed thereupon produces much fruit, and a large gift yet more abundant fruit. Thus, as the result of giving a single blanket, the novice, although he was only 7 years old, received 1,000 blankets. While the novice was in residence at Jetavana, his relatives came to see him frequently and talked and conversed with him. He thought to himself, as long as I reside here, my relatives will come to see me and will talk with me, and it will not be possible for me, whether they talk or not, to work out my own salvation. Suppose I were to obtain a formula of meditation from the teacher and go into the forest? Accordingly, he approached the teacher, paid obeisance to him, and obtained a formula of meditation leading to arahatship. Then, paying obeisance to his preceptor, he took bowl and robe and departed from the monastery. If I take up my residence in the neighborhood, thought he, my kinsman will send for me. Therefore, he went a distance of 20 leagues. As he proceeded on his way, he saw an old man at the gate of a certain village. The novice asked the old man, "Lay disciple, is there a forest hermitage in this neighborhood wherein monks may reside?" "Yes, reverend sir, there is." "Well then, show me how to get there." As soon as the old lay disciple saw the boy, he took a liking to him. So instead of merely pointing out the way, he remained standing where he was and said to him, "Come, reverend sir, I will show you the way." So saying, the old man took him with him and started off. As the novice went with him, he noticed along the way 5 or 6 places abounding in various kinds of flowers and fruits. The novice asked him the names of these places, and the lay disciple told him the name of each one. On reaching the forest hermitage, the lay disciple said to him, "Here, Reverend Sir, is a pleasant place. Take up your residence here." Continuing, he asked the novice his name and said to him, "Reverend Sir, be sure to come to our village for alms tomorrow." Then turning back, he returned to his own village and proclaimed to the inhabitants, "Elder Tissa, the forest dweller, Vanavasika Tissa, has taken up his residence in the monastery. Prepare broth, rice, and so forth for him." So the novice, who at first bore the name Tissa and afterward the three names Pindapadayaka Tissa, Kambaladayaka Tissa, and Vanavasi Tissa, received within 7 years 4 names in all. Very early on the morning of the following day, the novice entered that village for alms. When the people brought him alms and paid obeisance, he said, "May you be happy. May you obtain release from suffering." One man, even on presenting alms to him, was unable to bring himself to return home. All, without exception, must needs stand and gaze at him. Thus he easily obtained sufficient food to support him. All the inhabitants of the village prostrated themselves on their breasts before his feet and said to him, "Reverend Sir, if you will reside here during these 3 months, we will receive the 3 refuges, abide steadfast in the 5 moral precepts, and perform the 8 fast day duties." Promises to reside here. Perceiving that assistance was to be had there, he gave them his promise and regularly went there only for alms. Whenever the villagers paid obeisance to him, he recited the couplet, "I wish you happiness and release from suffering," and then went astray. After spending the first and the second month there, in the course of the 3rd month he attained arahatship, together with the supernatural faculties. Now his preceptor, Sariputta, having kept residence during the rainy season and celebrated the terminal festival, approached the teacher and having paid obeisance to him said, "Reverend Sir, I am going to visit the novice Tissa." "Go, Sariputta," said he. As Sariputta set out with his own retinue of 500 monks, he said to Moggallana, "Brother Moggallana, I am going to see the novice Tissa." Said the elder Moggallana, "I will go too, brother," and set out with his retinue of 500 monks. Likewise, all the chief disciples, the elder Mahakassapa, the elder Anuradha, the elder Upali, the elder Punya, and the rest, set out each with his retinue of 500 monks. The total retinue of all the chief disciples amounting to 40,000 monks, when they had gone a distance of 20 leagues, they came to the village which was the novices' resort for alms. The novices' regular personal attendants saw them, came to meet them at the village gate, and paid obeisance to them. The elder Sariputta asked him, "Lay disciple, is there a forest hermitage in this neighborhood?" "Yes, Reverend Sir, there is." "Is there a monk residing there?" "There is, Reverend Sir." "Has he monks with him, or has he none?" "He has, Reverend Sir." "What is his name?" "The elder Vanavasi, Reverend Sir." "Very well, show us the way there." "Who are you, Reverend Sir?" "I have come to see my novice." The lay disciple looked at them and recognized in them quite all the chief disciples, beginning with the captain of the faith. His whole body suffused with joy, he said, "Wait a moment, Reverend Sirs." So saying, he quickly entered the village and proclaimed, "Here are the 80 noble chief disciples, beginning with the eldest Sariputta. They have come here, each with his own retinue of 500 monks, to see the novice. Take beds, chairs, coverlets, lamps, and oil, and go out quickly." The inhabitants straightway took beds, and so forth as they were bidden, and falling in behind the elders, entered the monastery with them. The novice recognized the congregation of monks, took the bowls and robes of a few of the chief elders, and performed the customary duties for them. Even as he was arranging places for the elders to reside, and putting away their bowls and robes, the darkness of night came on. The elder Sariputta said to the lay disciples, "Retire, lay disciples. The darkness of night is come upon you." They replied, "Reverend Sir, we expected to hear the Dhamma today. We will not retire. We will hear the Dhamma. We have not hitherto heard the Dhamma." "Well then, lay disciple, light the lamp and announce that it is time to hear the Dhamma." When he had done so, the elder said to him, "Tissa, your supporters say that they wish to hear the Dhamma. Preach the Dhamma to them." The lay disciples arose with one accord and said, "Reverend Sir, our revered novice knows no discourse on the Dhamma except these 2 sentences: May you be happy, may you obtain release from suffering." Let someone else preach the Dhamma to us. Then his preceptor said to him, "Novice, but how may one be happy? How may one obtain release from suffering? Tell us the meaning of these 2 sentences." "Very well, Reverend Sir," said he. So taking a variegated fan and mounting the seat of the Dhamma, he preached the Dhamma to the pinnacle of arahatship. Even as a thunderstorm rains incessantly upon the 4 great continents, drawing the meaning and the matter from the 5 Nikayas, and analyzing the attributes of being as set forth by the Buddha, namely the aggregates of being, the elements of being, and the organs and objects of sense. Reverend sirs, said he, thus does one who has become an arahat obtain happiness. Thus does one who has become an arahat obtain release from suffering. Other folk obtain not release from the suffering connected with birth and the rest, and from the pains of hell and the rest. Well done, novice. You have interpreted the sacred texts well. Now intone them. And the novice also intoned them. At sunrise, the supporters of the novice were divided into two parties. Some were offended and said, indeed, we have never seen anyone so crude. How is it that, able as he is to preach such a sermon on the Dhamma, and having remained for so long a time as he has with his mother and father, he failed to recite a single sentence of the Dhamma to those present? But others were pleased and said, it is fortunate for us who know not even the difference between good and evil, that we have ministered to one so saintly, and that we have just now been able to hear the Dhamma from him. He that is supremely enlightened surveyed the world early in the morning of that day, observing that the supporters of the elder Vanavasi Tissa had entered the net of his knowledge. He considered within himself what would be the result, and he came to the following conclusion. Some of the supporters of the elder Vanavasi Tissa are offended, while others are pleased. Those who are offended at a novice like my son will go to hell. I must go to him, for if I go, all will be reconciled with my son and will obtain release from suffering. The villagers, having invited the congregation of monks, went to the village, erected a pavilion, prepared broth, rice and so forth, provided seats and sat down, waiting for the congregation of monks to come. The monks, having attended to their bodily needs, entered the village at the monastery time for going the rounds, and asked the novice, Tissa, will you go with us, or will you wait until later? When it is time for me to go, I will go. You go on ahead, reverend sirs. The monks took bowl and robe and went on. The teacher put on his robe at Jetavana, took his bowl, went in the twinkling of an eye and showed himself in front of the company of monks. There was one universal shout. He that is supremely enlightened is come. The whole village was agitated. With jubilant hearts, men provided seats for the congregation of monks with the Buddha at their head and presented them with broth and hard food. Even before the meal was over, the novice entered the village. Thereupon the villagers brought food and presented it to him with due reverence. Taking as much as required, he went to the teacher and held out the bowl. Bring it to me, Tissa, said the teacher, extending his hand. He took the bowl and showed it to the elder, saying, "See, Sariputta, here is the bowl of your novice." The elder took the bowl from the teacher's hand and returned it to the novice, saying, "Go, sit down where you are accustomed to sit down with your bowl and eat your meal." The villagers, after waiting upon the congregation of monks presided over by the Buddha, requested the teacher to return thanks. In returning thanks, he spoke as follows: "It is fortunate for you, lay disciples, that on account of the novice who has come to your homes, you have been privileged to see Sariputta, Moggallana, Kassapa, and the rest of the 80 chief disciples. Indeed, it was solely on account of this novice that I myself came here. It is fortunate for you that you have thus been privileged solely on account of this novice to behold the Buddha. It is your good fortune, yes, your very good fortune." The villagers thought to themselves, "Indeed, we were fortunate to be privileged to behold a novice who is able to win the favor of Buddhas and monks alike, and to give him alms." So those who had been offended at the novice were pleased, while those who were satisfied the more. At the conclusion of the words of the thanksgiving, many obtained the fruit of conversion and the fruits of the second and third paths. Then the teacher rose from his seat and departed. The villagers accompanied him a little way and then turned back. As the teacher walked side by side with the novice, he asked the novice the names of various places previously pointed out to him by the lay disciple, and the novice told him the names. When they reached the place where the novice resided, the teacher climbed to the top of a mountain. From the top of this mountain, the great ocean is visible. The teacher asked the novice, "Tissa, as you stand on the top of the mountain and look this way and that, what do you see?" "The great ocean, Reverend Sir." "What thought comes into your mind as you look upon the great ocean?" "Reverend Sir, this is the thought that comes into my mind. At times, when I have wept over my sufferings, I have shed tears more abundant than the waters contained in the four oceans." Well said, Tissa. It is even so. At times, when I have wept over my sufferings, I have shed tears more abundant than the waters contained in the four oceans. Well said, Tissa. It is even so. In the times that you have suffered, you have indeed shed tears more abundant than the waters contained in the four great oceans. So saying, the teacher pronounced the following stanza: "But little water do the oceans four contain, compared with all the tears that man hath shed, by sorrow stricken and by suffering distraught. Wherefore, O friend, still heedless dost thou remain? Again he asked him, Tissa, where do you reside? In this mountain cave, reverend sir. What thought comes into your mind as you reside here? Reverend sir, this is the thought that comes into my mind. There is no limit to the number of times I have died and my body been laid upon this ground. Well said, Tissa. It is even so. There is no spot where these living beings we know have not lain down on the earth and died. So saying, he recited the Upasalhaka Jataka verses as follows. 14,000 Upasalhakas were burned in this place. There is no place where men have not died, where truth is and righteousness, where no injury is done to living beings, where self-restraint and self-command exists, thither resort holy men. There death is not. While as a general rule, it is true that of all beings who have died and whose bodies have been laid upon the earth, there are none who die where men have not died before. Nevertheless, men like the elder Ananda do die where men have not died before. For example, we are told that when the elder Ananda was 120 years old, he surveyed his allotted term of life, and perceiving that the time of his dissolution was near at hand, made the announcement, I shall die 7 days hence. This announcement was heard by dwellers on both sides of the river Rohini. Thereupon, those who dwelt on the near side said, we have been of great service to the elder. He will die on our side. But those who dwelt on the far side said, we have been of great service to the elder. He will die on our side. The elder heard the remarks and thought to himself, those who dwell on both sides have helped me equally. I cannot say these men have not helped me. Now, if I die on the near side, those who dwell on the far side will quarrel with their brethren over the question, who are to have my relics? If on the other hand I die on the far side, those who dwell on the near side will do the same thing. Therefore, if a quarrel arises, it will arise solely because of me, and likewise, if it ceases, it will cease solely because of me. So he said, not only those who dwell on the near side are helpers of mine, but also those who dwell on the far side are helpers of mine. There are none who are not my helpers. Let those that dwell on the near side assemble on the near side, and let those that dwell on the far side assemble on the far side. 7 days later, sitting cross-legged in the air over the middle of the river at the height of 7 palm trees, he preached the Dhamma to the multitude. When he had finished his discourse, he commanded, "Let my body split in two, and let one portion fall on the near side and the other on the far side." And sitting there, he entered into ecstatic meditation on the element of fire. Thereupon flames of fire burst from his body. His body split into two, and one portion fell on the near side and the other on the far side. The populace wept and wailed. Like the sound of the earth splitting open was the sound of their lamentation. Yet more pitiful even then was the sound of lamentation at the death of the teacher. For 4 months men went about wailing and lamenting, saying, "So long as he who held the teacher's bowl and robe remained, it was as if the teacher himself yet remained among us. But now the teacher is dead." Again the teacher asked the novice, "Tissa, when you hear the noise of panthers and other wild beasts in this forest, are you afraid or not?" "I am not afraid, exalted one. On the contrary, when I hear the noise of these animals, a feeling of love for the forest arises within me." And he recited 60 stanzas descriptive of the forest. Then said the teacher to him, "Tissa, what is it, Reverend Sir? I am going. Will you go with me, or will you turn back? If my preceptor wishes to go and will take me with him, I will go. If he wishes to turn back, I will turn back, Reverend Sir." The teacher set out with a congregation of monks. Now it was the novice's wish to turn back. The elder, knowing this, said to him, "Tissa, turn back if you wish to do so." Accordingly the novice paid obeisance to the teacher and the congregation of monks and turned back. The teacher went back to Jetavana. A discussion rose in the hall of truth. Truly it is a difficult task which the novice Tissa is performing. From the day he was reborn, his kinsfolk held 7 festivals and provided 500 monks with naught but rich porridge made of honey, milk and rice. When he became a monk, they remained at the monastery for 7 days and again provided the congregation of 500 monks, presided over by the Buddha, with naught but rich porridge made of honey, milk and rice. On the 8th day, after he had become a monk, he entered the village and in only 2 days received 1,000 bowls of food and 1,000 cushions for alms bowls. Again, Another day he received 1,000 blankets, so abundant were the gain and honor he received during his residence here. But he has now renounced all of this gain and honor, entered the forest, and is living on whatever food is brought him. It is truly a difficult task the novice desires performing. The teacher came in and asked them, "Monks, what is it that you are sitting here now and talking about?" They told him. "Yes, monks," he replied, "there is one road which leads to gain, another which leads to Nibbana. The doors of the 4 states of punishment stand open to the monk who, thinking to acquire gain, takes upon himself the forest life and the other pure practices and clings to that which brings him gain. But he who walks upon the road that leads to Nibbana rejects the gain and honor he might have, enters the forest, and by struggling and striving wins arahatship." And joining the connection, he instructed them in the law by pronouncing the following stanza. For one road leads to gain, the other to Nibbana. Understanding this, the monk, the disciple of the Buddha, should not delight in worldly gain, but should devote himself to solitude. Book 6, Story 5. Wise Novice Pandita. Story of the past. Sakka and the poor man. In times past, they say, Kassapa, the supremely enlightened, accompanied by a retinue of 20,000 monks, freed from the defilements, paid a visit to Benares. Thereupon the residents, mindful of the fame they should acquire thereby, united in bands of 8 or 10, and presented the visiting monks with the customary offerings. Now it happened one day that the teacher, in returning thanks at the end of the meal, spoke as follows. Lay disciples, here in this world, one man says to himself, it is my bounden duty to give only that which is my own. Why should I urge others to give? So he himself gives alms, but does not urge others to give. That man in his future states of existence receives the blessing of wealth, but not the blessing of a retinue. Another man urges others to give, but does not give himself. That man receives in his future states of existence the blessing of a retinue, but not the blessing of wealth. Another man neither gives himself nor urges others to give. That man, in his future states of existence, receives neither the blessing of wealth nor the blessing of a retinue, but lives as an ant-eater of remnants. Yet another man not only gives himself, but also urges others to give. That man, in his future states of existence, receives both the blessing of wealth and the blessing of retinue. Now, a certain wise man who stood near heard this and thought to himself, I will straightway so act as to obtain both blessings for myself. Accordingly, he paid obeisance to the teacher and said, Reverend sir, tomorrow receive alms from me. How many monks do you wish me to bring? How many monks are there in your retinue, Reverend sir? 20,000 monks. Reverend sir, tomorrow bring all your monks and receive alms from me. The teacher accepted his invitation. The man entered the village and announced, Men and women, I have invited the congregation of monks presided over by the Buddha to take a meal here tomorrow. Each and all of you give to as many monks as you are able. Then he went about inquiring how many each could provide for. We will supply 10. We will supply 20. We will supply 100. We will supply 500. They replied, each giving in proportion to his means. All of the pledges he wrote down in order on a leaf. Now at that time there lived in this city a certain man who was so poor that he was known as Prince of Paupers, Mahadugata. The solicitor, meeting him face to face, said also to him, Sir Mahadugata, I have invited the congregation of monks presided over by the Buddha for tomorrow. Tomorrow the residents of the city will give alms. How many monks will you provide for? Sir, what have I to do with monks? Monks need rich men to provide for them. But as for me, I possess not so much as a small measure of rice wherewith to make porridge tomorrow. What have I to do with monks? Now it behoves a man who urges others to give to be circumspect. Therefore, when the solicitor heard the poor man plead his poverty as an excuse, instead of remaining silent, he spoke to him as follows. Sir Mahadugata, there are many people in this city who live in luxury, eating rich food, wearing soft clothes, adorned with all manner of adornments, and sleeping on beds of royal splendor. But as for you, you work for your living, and yet get scarcely enough to fill your belly. That being the case, does it not seem to you likely that the reason why you yourself get nothing is that you have never done anything for others? I think so, sir. Well, why do you not do a work of merit right now? You are young. You have plenty of strength. Is it not your bounden duty, while you are earning a living, to give alms according to your ability? Even as the solicitor spoke, The poor man was overcome with emotion and said, "Write my name on the leaf for one monk. No matter how little I may earn, I will provide food for one monk." The solicitor said to himself, "What is the use of writing one monk on the leaf?" and omitted to write down the name. Mahadukata went home and said to his wife, "Wife, tomorrow the residents of the village will provide food for the congregation of monks. I also was requested by the solicitor to provide food for one monk. Therefore, we also will provide food for one monk tomorrow." His wife, instead of saying to him, "We are poor, why did you promise to do so?" said, "Husband, what you did was quite right. We are poor now because we have never given anything. We will both work for hire and give food to one monk." So both of them went out to look for work. A rich merchant saw Mahadukata and said to him, "Sir Mahadukata, do you wish to work for hire?" "Yes, Your Honor." "What kind of work can you do?" "Whatever you would like to have done." Well then, we are going to entertain 300 monks. Come, split wood." And he brought an axe and a hatchet and gave them to him. Mahadugata put on a stout girdle and, exerting himself to the utmost, began to split wood, first tossing the axe aside and taking the hatchet, and then tossing the hatchet aside and taking the axe. The merchant said to him, "Sir, today you work with unusual energy. What is the reason for it?" "Master, I expect to provide food for one monk." The merchant was pleased at heart and thought to himself, "It is a difficult task this man has undertaken." Instead of remaining silent and refusing to give because of his poverty, he says, "I will work for hire and provide food for one monk." The merchant's wife also saw the poor man's wife and said to her, "Woman, what kind of work can you do? Whatever work you wish to have done." So she took her into the room where the mortar was kept, gave her a winnowing fan, a pestle, and so on, and set her at work. The woman pounded the rice and sifted it with as much joy and pleasure as if she were dancing. The merchant's wife said to her, "Woman, you appear to take unusual joy and pleasure in doing your work. What is the reason for it?" "Lady, with the wages we earn at this work, we expect to provide food for one month." When the merchant's wife heard this, she was pleased and said to herself, "What a difficult task it is that this woman is doing. When Mahadugata had finished splitting the wood, the merchant gave him 4 measures of rice as pay for his work, and 4 more as an expression of goodwill. The poor man went home and said to his wife, "The rice I have received for my work will serve as a supply of provisions for us. With the pay you have earned, procure curds, oil, wood, relishes, and utensils." The merchant's wife gave the woman a cup of ghee, a vessel of curds, an assortment of relishes, and a measure of clean rice. The husband and wife, between them, therefore received 5 measures of rice, filled with joy and satisfaction at the thought that they had received food to bestow in alms. They rose very early in the morning. Mahadugata's wife said to him, "Husband, go seek leaves for curry and fetch them home." Seeing no leaves in the shop, he went to the bank of the river, and there he went about picking up leaves, singing for joy at the thought, "Today I shall have the privilege of giving food to the noble monks." A fisherman who had just thrown his big net into the river and was standing close by thought to himself, "That must be the voice of Mahadugata." So he called him and asked, "You sing as though you were overjoyed at heart. What is the reason?" "I am picking up leaves, friend." "What are you going to do?" "I am going to provide food for one monk." "Happy indeed the monk who shall eat your leaves." "What else can I do, master?" "I intend to provide for him with the leaves I have myself gathered." "Well then, come here." "What do you wish me to do, master?" "Take these fish and tie them up in bundles to sell for a pada, a half pada, and a penny." Mahadugata did as he was told, and the residents of the city bought them for the monks they had invited. He was still engaged in tying up bundles of fish when the time came for the monks to go on their rounds for alms. Whereupon he said to the fisherman, "I must go now, friend. It is time for the monks to come. Are there any bundles of fish left?" "No, friend, they are all gone." "Well then, here are 4 red fish which I buried in the sand for my own use. If you intend to provide food for the monks, take them with you." So saying, he gave him the red fish. Now, as the teacher surveyed the world on the morning of that day, he observed that Mahadugata had entered the net of his knowledge, and he considered within himself, "What is going to happen? Yesterday, Mahadugata and his wife worked for hire that they might provide food for one monk. Which monk will he obtain?" And he came to the following conclusion: The residents will obtain monks to entertain in their houses according to the names written on the leaf. None other monk will Mahadugata obtain, save only me. Now the Buddhas are said to show their particular tenderness to poor men. So when the teacher, very early in the morning, had attended to his bodily needs, he said to himself, I will bestow my favor on Mahadugata. And he went into the perfumed chamber and sat down. When Mahadugata went into his house with the fish, the yellow stone throne of Saka showed signs of heat. Saka looked about and said to himself, what can be the reason for this? And he considered within himself, yesterday Mahadugata and his wife worked for hire, that they might provide food for one monk. Which monk will he obtain? Finally, he came to the following conclusion. Mahadugata will obtain none other monk than the Buddha, who is sitting in the perfumed garden with this thought in his mind. I will bestow my favor on Mahadugata. Now it is Mahadugata's intention to offer the Tathagata a meal of his own making, consisting of porridge and rice and leaf curry. Suppose I were to go to Mahadugata's house and offer to act as cook. Accordingly, Saka disguised himself, went to the vicinity of his house and asked, would anyone like to hire a man to work for him? Mahadugata saw him and said to him, Sir, what kind of work can you do? Master, I am a man of all works. There is nothing I do not know how to do. Among other things, I know how to cook porridge and boil rice. Sir, we need your services, but we have no money to pay you. What work is it you have to do? I wish to provide food for one monk, and I should like to have someone prepare the porridge and rice. If you intend to provide food for a monk, it will not be necessary for you to pay me. Is it not proper that I should perform a work of merit? If that is the case, very well, sir, come in. So Saka entered the poor man's house, had him bring the rice and other articles of food, and then dismissed him, saying, Go, fetch the monk allotted to you. Now the solicitor of alms had sent to the house of the residents the monks according to the names on the leaf. Mahadugata met him and said to him, Give me the monk allotted to me. The solicitor immediately recollected what he had done and replied, I forgot to allot you a monk. Mahadugata felt as if a sharp dagger had been thrust into his belly. Said he, Sir, why are you ruining me? Yesterday you urged me to give alms. So my wife and I worked all day for hire, and today I got up early in the morning to gather leaves, went to the bank of the river, and spent the day picking up leaves. Give me one monk. And he wrung his arms and burst into tears. People gathered about and asked, "What is the matter, Mahadugata?" He told them the facts, whereupon they asked the solicitor, "Is it true, as this man alleges, that you urged him to hire himself out for service to provide food for a monk?" "Yes, noble sirs, you have done a grave wrong in that, while making arrangements for so many monks, you failed to allot this man a single monk." The solicitor was troubled by what they said and said to him, Mahadugata, do not ruin me. You are putting me to great inconvenience. The residents have taken to their several houses the monks allotted to them, according to the names written on the leaf, and there is no monk in my own house whom I can take away and give to you. But the teacher is even now sitting in the perfumed chamber, having just bathed his face, and without are seated kings, royal princes, commanders-in-chief, and others, waiting for him to come forth, that they may take his bowl and accompany him on his way. Now, the Buddhas are wont to show particular tenderness toward poor men. Therefore, go to the monastery, pay obeisance to the teacher, and say to him, "I am a poor man, reverend sir. Bestow your favor on me. If you have merit, you will undoubtedly obtain what you seek." So Mahadugata went to the monastery. Now on previous occasions he had been seen at the monastery as an eater of remnants of food. Therefore the kings, royal princes, and others said to him, "Mahadugata, this is not meal time. Why do you come here?" "Sirs," he replied, "I know it is not meal time, but I have come to pay obeisance to the teacher." Then he went to the perfumed chamber, laid his head on the threshold, paid obeisance to the teacher with the 5 rests, and said, "Reverend sir, in this city there is no man poorer than I. Be my refuge, bestow favor on me. If you have merit, you will undoubtedly obtain what you seek." So Mahadugata went to the monastery. Now on previous occasions he had been seen at the monastery as an eater of remnants of food. Therefore the kings, royal princes, and others said to him, "Mahadugata, this is not meal time. Why do you come here?" "Sirs," He replied, I know it is not meal time, but I have come to pay obeisance to the teacher. Then he went to the perfumed chamber, laid his head on the threshold, paid obeisance to the teacher with the 5 rests, and said, Reverend Sir, in this city there is no man poorer than I. Be my refuge, bestow favor on me. The teacher opened the door of the perfumed chamber, took down his bowl, and placed it in the poor man's hands. It was as though Mahadugata had received the glory of a universal monarch. Kings, royal princes, and others gasped at each other. Now, when the teacher presents his bowl to a man, no one dares take it from him by force. But they spoke thus, Sir, Mahadugata gave us the teacher's bowl. We will give you all this money for it. You are a poor man. Take the money. What need have you of the bowl? Mahadugata said, I will give it to no one. I have no need of money. All that I desire is to provide food for the teacher. All without exception begged him to give them the bowl, but failing to get it, desisted. The king thought to himself, money will not tempt Mahadugata to give up the bowl, and no one can take from him the bowl which the teacher has given him of his own free will. But how much will this man's alms amount to? When the time comes for him to present his alms, I will take the teacher aside, conduct him to my house, and give him the food I have made ready. This was the thought in his mind, even as he accompanied the teacher. Now Sakar, king of gods, prepared porridge, rice, leaf curry, and other kinds of food, made ready a seat worthy of the teacher, and sat down, awaiting the arrival of the teacher. Mahadugata conducted the teacher to his house and invited him to enter. The teacher entered the house, and having entered, sat down on the seat prepared by Sakar. When the teacher had seated himself, the king said to Mahadugata, Sir, Mahadugata, when we begged you to give us the teacher's bowl, you refused to do so. Now let us see what sort of alms you have prepared for the teacher. At that moment, Sakka uncovered the dishes and showed the porridge, rice, and other kinds of food. The perfume and fragrance thereof enveloped the whole city. The king surveyed the porridge, rice, and other foods, and said to the exalted one, Reverend Sir, when I came here, I thought to myself, how much will Mahadugata's alms amount to? When he presents his alms, I will take the teacher aside, conduct him to my house, and give him the food I have myself prepared. But as a matter of fact, I have never yet seen such provisions as these. If I remain here, Mahadugata will be annoyed. Therefore I will depart. And having paid obeisance to the teacher, he departed. Saka presented the porridge and other food to the teacher and faithfully ministered to his needs. After the teacher had eaten his meal, he returned thanks, rose from his seat and departed. The king bestowed high honor upon Mahadugata and gave him the post of treasurer. Thereafter, having lived out his allotted term of life in the performance of works of merit, Mahadugata was reborn at the end of his life in the world of the gods. After enjoying celestial glory for the space of the interval between the appearances of two Buddhas, he passed from that state of existence in the dispensation of the present Buddha, and was conceived in the womb of the daughter of a rich merchant of Savatthi, a retainer of the elder Sariputta.